Today here, I would like to address one of the most important questions, if not the most important questions. That is, has China's political reform stopped? What kind of political reform China has carried out, particularly since President Xi Jinping came to power at the Communist Party's 18th Party Congress in 2012? I think it's a very important question for us to answer. Well, of course, it's not a new question. It's an older question. When I was a PhD student at Princeton University in the early 1990s, in my seminar, our professor would tell us, well, China was a model of economic reform without a political reform. Yes, you have economic reform, of course. Then you don't have a political reform. Right? But now, since the 18th Party Congress, people will say China don't have any kind of reform, both economic reform and the political reform. Many politicians, even scholars, have criticized or attacked China's political system. And the US politicians and the government officials began to call China the Communist China again. It's a Cold War language, right? So, but my observation is totally opposite. China has a political reform, but China's political reform is defined by Chinese civilization, Chinese culture, China's national situation, not defined by any Western ideology, right? So let me tell you what political reform means in China. First, centralization. Well, people don't like centralization as a term. People sometimes equal centralization to dictatorship, but I think it's not right. China is a big country. A big country, China has coast provinces, which are economically very advanced. China has a west region of China, which economy is backward. North China, Southern China, local diversity are huge. So a country like this, actually, China, United States, or India, I think development must be, in different regions, must be coordinated very well. Coordination requires centralization, right? Particularly political centralization. But don't forget, under this political centralization, China has a lot of decentralization. What's a decentralization? I'm living now in Shenzhen, right? 40 years ago, Shenzhen was a very small fishing village. But now, Shenzhen become an international metropolitan city, more than 20 million people, right? But remember, this city is built from the below, right? Not from top down. Even in this region, like you have Shenzhen, you have Dongguan, you have Guangzhou. Guangzhou, of course, is an older city, but now is rejuvenated, right? So, but remember, during the same period of time, how many cities in this world are in decline? Why was that? I think it's related to coordination. In the United States, capital become very dominant. When capital came, a city will rise. When capital leaves, city will decline. But China, because the system, the central government has been able to coordinate development with its power. Yes, China has experienced the 1997-1998 Asia financial crisis. China has experienced the global financial crisis. But those cities' development are sustainable because of coordination. So I think coordination is very important. For example, we are now here in Guangdong provinces. Guangdong provinces has been asked to support other provinces like Tibet, like Xinjiang, like Guizhou. So here, rich people, contribute more to help people in the poor area. That's very unique. Without the coordination, how can China do this? You cannot imagine, for example, in the United States, the federal government asked New York City to help Alabama. No such case. You will not say this in India. I don't think the Indian government, central government, will ask one state to help another state. So I think centralization is very important. The second aspect of China political reform is what I call checks balance with Chinese characteristics. Well, check balance is a Western term because in the West we saw three powers, checks and balance, the power of legislature, executive, and the judiciary. But don't forget, China also has a three-power system. People don't recognize it. The system was actually built at the Han Dynasty. You called power, decision-making power, then executive, then supervision. The good story is after the 18th Party Congress, after the President Xi came into power, he tried to creatively reintroduce this three-power system into China. So there's a big checks and balance among three powers. Of course, if you ask Chinese bureaucrats in the government, they will complain, well, our behavior now is very much constrained because if I do something wrong, the supervision people will come to you to investigate you. So the government is becoming actually more efficient and much more clean now, right? So this is three power check balance. But remember, these three powers are coordinated by the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. People will say, if you're from looking into China political system from a Western ideology, political, perspective like a multi-party system, you will not be able to understand China. Yes, the Chinese Communist Party is the only ruling party in China. But the party is very open. I'm a political scientist. I look into the history of European political system. I look into American political system. Yes, I like democracy, but we have a look into the detail of democracy. I found out really political families are so important for the whole West. Right? US, some political families are so powerful, the Bush family, the Kennedy family, the Clinton family, right? But in China, at least since the Communist Party came to power, China doesn't have this kind of tradition. The system is more open. Look at those state presidents, party secretary. Most of them came from the common family, not a political family. President Xi, of course, Xi Jinping was regarded from political family because his father was a high-rank government official, right? A leader. But even President Xi had to start his career from the village level. So he had working experience at village level, then county level, then city level, right? You know that, right? So he was sent to the China countryside, worked there for a number of years, then communal level, right? His experience in a different level of China's political hierarchy. China will never produce someone like Donald Trump, right? Because in democracy, very simple. If you get enough votes, you are the leader. But imagine if inexperienced people came to Zhongnanhai, China's White House, without any experience, how will he govern the whole China? So that's China's meritocracy. It's open. China's political system is open to all social classes. So that's very important. Yes, one party, but it's an open one-party system. You go to vote every 4 years, once every 4 years, every 5 years, then you stop participation. But China, political participation is daily. Well, if you regard China as a dictatorship, then of course you will not be able to understand China. This May, China passed the most important legislature, what China calls civil code. It consists of 1,300 articles. But this legislature was debated, discussed for so many years. If China is a dictatorship, I think the central leadership will pass the law without the discussion, without the debate, without all kinds of controversies. That means leaders have to listen to people here, right? I think a Chinese leader cares public opinion more than in democracy. You have to listen to all kinds of social opinions. You have to collect all kinds of social opinions to make your policies accepted to the whole society. So China, I think, if we look at the past 4 decades, the system, well, in the eyes of the West, still a dictatorship. But I would say, it's really what China call democracy with the Chinese characteristics, right? It's a different kind of democracy, right? But look at the effectiveness of this system. When I entered the Beijing University in 1981, China's per capita GDP was less than $300. I was born in the countryside. We did not have enough food or clothing because I was born in the countryside. But in 4 decades, China became now second largest economy. Per capita GDP now is over $10,000. And in the 4 decades, China get out of 800 million people get out of poverty. Of course, it was a miracle in the world economic history. But in the past 8 years, after the President Xi came into power, China was able to reduce poverty for 100 million people in 8 years. It was a miracle in world history. No country was able to do that before. For the next stage, just look at the party Congress, right? The first plenum, they issued a document for China's next stage of development, 2035. There's settings there to make China middle class bigger and bigger. I think it's very important for middle class. Middle class is everything. Why the United States now get in trouble? Why those opposition parties, partisan politics is so overwhelming? Because of shrinking of middle class. From 1945 to 1988, the whole West, United States and most European states, their middle class reached 70%. But now, since the 80s, well, the world has experienced what a Harvard professor, Danny Roddick, called hyperglobalization. The US, of course, has benefited from this wave of globalization, but its middle class is shrinking. Now, today, US middle class is less than 50%. So that's why the US society becomes so divided. You look at Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they're almost half and half, if you calculate their votes they got. So very, very divided. Right? That's because of the middle class become shrinking. When we talk about the China economic reform or social progress, but remember, institution building has been the most important part of China's political reform. Now, at this stage, China's institution building is comparable to the Han Dynasty. The Qing Dynasty was China's first dynasty, but the Qing Dynasty was very short-lived because of no institution building. Then at the Han Dynasty, Han Dynasty engaged with institution building. The Han Dynasty building lasted for more than 2,000 years. China at this stage is engaged a lot of institution buildings. I think it's a good side is, the Communist Party is a missionary party. The party rule culturally not based on vote, calculate, based on its mission. So that's why China has a 5-year plan. No party is talking about 2035. No party is talking about 2050, right? Only a few parties, like the Chinese Communist Party, like Singapore's People's Action Party, where I worked for more than 20 years. So those parties are very missionary. They govern the country by, realizing the mission they set up. But how to set up their mission, I think they learn from the different countries. China is a learning state. In the past 4 decades, China has learned big country from like United States or European Union. China also learned from a small state like Singapore. So the system is really a combination of best practice from different corners of the world. So the West, of course, you can criticize China, but I hope the West will not ignore Chinese political system, because this system really make China stronger, actually enable China to continuously to rise. But now the U.S. is only, criticizing China, attacking China, but that will not help the United States really. And I think China has learned from the United States a lot. So I think the U.S. or other countries also can learn something from China. So eventually I would say, China and the world, China, the United States, and Europe, they will have to learn how to live together peacefully, how to learn from each other. That will make the world better. Thank you.